All right, guys. So I wanted to weigh in on the whole thing that's happening with Glock and why I think people are just kind of freaking out about it for no reason. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish that Glock wasn't being pressured to change their design out of just out of the lawsuits. They're doing it basically out of desperation. I wish they would just naturally let a Gen 6 happen and did their little updates and stuff. And the fact they have to change it to like a non-cruciform trigger system in order to appease the communist states like California and the communist cities like Seattle, Baltimore, Chicago. There's a bunch of them suing Glock. And I have no idea what it's like to be sued by like huge government entities like that, but I'm sure it's not fun. I'm sure it's expensive, and I kind of I don't agree with it. Like I wish Glock would fight, but at the same time, I understand why they're not. They're a business. They're in the business to make money, and in order just to circumvent the whole thing happening, just doing a few tweaks and updates, I think, is a smart move on their end. I'm not shilling for Glock by any means, but I'm just kind of explaining to people why this isn't such a big deal. Now, obviously, we don't have any information on the real redesigns of the Gen V or V models that they're coming out with, and I think the thing that people are worried about the most is they hope it doesn't change for me. This is what I'm worried about. I hope it doesn't change the reliability of the Glock system, and I hope it doesn't change the just wholesome simplicity of the weapon system. I've owned a lot of different pistols. I still own a lot of different pistols, from FNs to H&Ks to SIGs to Springfields to like weird models like Grand Powers and A-Rexes. I've done a lot of work to a lot of different pistol platforms. And I like to service my own stuff. I like to change triggers. I like to be able to change my own extractors when they wear out or break. I like to modify my stuff too. I like being able to detail strip when I've taken out a pistol and done like, three, four, 500 rounds in a weekend, and just being able to clean it sufficiently after getting it nice and carboned up, right? So in order to do that, you kind of have to have some knowledge on how the pistol works. And granted, like other striker fired pistols roughly work the same way, but the small parts and how they're put together are definitely different. I'm going to tell you that there is nothing as simple as a Glock. In fact, I'm going to show you how simple taking apart a Glock is. This is just a standard Glock 19 Gen 5. It is basically factory except for the magwell. And I'm going to tell you, with very little tools, you can take apart, completely detail strip apart a Glock, right? I'm going to start with the slide. Everyone knows how to field strip a Glock, and with nothing but a 3/32 punch pin, I'm going to take this bad boy apart. There's your back plate. There's your firing pin assembly. I can take out the spring cups and the springs and the firing pin and stuff, but I'm going to choose not to. This is your safety depressor plunger. This is your extractor. This is your safety plunger with your spring, and this is your slide, right? So that's your slide parts right there. And with your frame, that's your locking block pin. This is your trigger housing pin. This is your locking block. This is your slide stop, slide release. This is your fire control group. This is your trigger bar and your trigger. This is your, well, now it's on the floor. That's your connector. Hold on. I got to find that. Sorry. That's their connector, OEM connector. This is your trigger housing, and you have your trigger return spring in here, and that's really easy to take out. And I could take out the magazine release with my 3/32 punch pin and take out the spring for it. I can take out the takedown lever and stuff, so I can completely detail strip this Glock with nothing but a punch pin, right? I can't do that with any other weapon system. It takes me like 10 to 15 minutes just to change out a trigger shoe on an M&P. It took me like it took me a good part of an hour to change a trigger on my echelon. And I've changed two triggers on two at two different echelons, and it still takes me a long time. I've changed probably 13 triggers on MMPs to like Apex and Overwatch Precisions. Still takes me 10 or 15 minutes to do it. Changing out distractors on like a VP9 or something, that takes me, I want to say 20 or 30 minutes and a lot more tools. So it takes me a long time to service my other pistols. And you can just see how easy this was to take apart. Now, I will say there is some parts compatibility. Now that I have this all apart, there is some parts compatibility with Gen 4 and Gen 5. But why I think people are making a big deal about nothing is because when you really break it down, right, I'm going to put the parts that are compatible with Gen 4 to the side, right? So you have your connector, your barrel, your recoil spring, your trigger pins, and your safety depressor plunger. That's it. Oh yeah, I mean obviously your magazine release will be and your takedown lever are compatible, but that's basically it. You can put a Gen 5 slide on a Gen 4 and stuff, so I guess you could consider the slide. But if you're trying to, if you have a Gen 4 slide and you're looking to, find parts that are compatible with it, obviously the sights are too. Um, really, safety depressor plunger, your recoil spring, your barrel, your connector, and your locking block and your trigger assembly pin. That's it. So your trigger bar, your trigger shoes, you could, you need Gen 5 trigger shoes specifically for a Gen 5. Your trigger housing is not compatible. Your trigger return spring is not compatible. Locking blocks, you may, but I know there's a little bit of a difference between Gen 4 and Gen 5 locking blocks. Your firing pin's definitely not. So the firing pin on a Gen 5 is like teardropped, and the other one's kind of oval shaped. It's kind of hard to explain. So your firing pin spring is, and like your channel liner and what holds your firing pin here, this little piece of plastic is probably compatible. Oh yeah, your back plate is obviously compatible. But your extractor, your safety plunger, your slice up, slide release, a lot of parts aren't. That's my point, right? So people are making a big to do about parts with the redesign and how, oh, it's not going to be compatible. Well, there's already a lot of parts that are compatible between Gen 5 and Gen 4. And the same thing goes with Gen 4 and Gen 3. It's even a broader range when it comes to Gen 3 to Gen 5, right? So I'm not so much upset about the redesign, because I like the main thing I'm worried about is like, please don't affect the reliability of the weapon system. Obviously, that's number one. And don't affect the simplicity. Don't affect how easy it is for me to service this. Like, you can change stuff, right? Like, they're getting rid of the cruciform here because your auto steer rides up there and trips the disconnector and makes it full auto and stuff. So they have to get rid of the cruciform trigger, and they already have. Like, this is a Glock performance trigger, and you can see it's a non-cruciform type trigger, right? So the performance trigger is non-auto compatible, I believe. So they've already made triggers and stuff that are non-cruciform and stuff, and that's the thing that they kind of have to worry about the most. But man, like, it is just so simple to put together and take apart a Glock. I can do this in my sleep. I can easily diagnose problems with Glocks, and I really hope they don't screw it up, right? Because what I really like about it is just how simple it is. You saw that. I can't do that with an MMP. I can't do that with a VP9. I can't do that with the CZ. Um, I can't do that with an FN. I can't do that with any other pistol, and it's not even by like a small margin. It's by a large margin. I'm talking. It's considerably more complicated to work on other pistols than Glocks, and I like being self sufficient. So that's why I'm that's the only thing that I'm worried about, right? Is I really hope they don't redesign it to a point where I it's a lot more complicated to work on. Hold on here. I say that and I'm tripping up on my reassembly and stuff, but that's it. That's it. Function check works. Super easy, right? And that's basically an OEM Glock except for the magwell and stuff. So, and I just did that with a punch pen. That's all I used. Um, so very simple. I really like the Glock, and I'm not too worried about the redesign, other than what I stated. But um, there are plenty of other pistols that do things better than Glock. Some have better triggers, some have better optic systems, some have better grip textures and angles and all sorts of things. Like um, there's definitely a lot of pistols out of the box better than Glock, but you can't tell me there's another pistol out there as simple to work on as a Glock. At least I haven't seen one. And that's why I choose the R15 on the Glock, just because of how easily it is for me to service those weapons. So that's my main concern. Please don't screw up how easy it is for me to service the pistols and stuff. And I'll tell you, like, even Gen 4s aren't as easy, but they're still relatively simple. It's a little harder to get the locking block pin and the slide stop pin and stuff out. You got an extra pin there. The trigger return spring is definitely a little bit harder to change out, and you kind of have to have a little bit of know-how. But other than those two parts for a Gen 4, it's basically the same, right? And they still made updates to the point where like there's a lot of parts that aren't compatible, and that's my whole point between this. It's like people are freaking out because they're not going to be able to use parts. And in fact, I think all they said was barrels and magazines are all compatible. But I bet you magazine releases, slide stops, sights, um, the pin sets, takedown levers. I bet you all that will probably stay roughly the same. They're not changing the dimensions of the pistol either. They're keeping the dimensions the same. So that's a smart move because that means all your holsters are going to still work for the V models or the Gen Vs. But I am curious to see what Glock does. I they're being forced to make changes, and I wish it just would have just naturally happened. Like I was excited to see what they're going to do with Gen 6. Um, I wonder if the V model is going to be if that's going to stave off the release of Gen 6 because they were about due to announce a Gen 6 in my opinion. And Gen 5 is definitely my favorite generation so far, but I was kind of curious just what little incremental changes they were going to do for Gen 6. And there'll probably be a little bit, but I'm I was hopeful. I was real hopeful for Glock that one of these days they would give us maybe like a better stippled frame or an aluminum frame Glock. Um, get ones that were had a better like optic cut system and maybe better slide serrations. Made them just a little flashier like this one. Gave us the ability to buy it that way out of the box and still produced maybe like the simple Glocks, so people like them. But like a metal frame Glock, that's what I was looking for because I'm getting really into like the metal frame striker fires right now, and they're just really great. I like hammer fires too, and most hammer fires are going to be aluminum framed and stuff. But um, having like a real OEM aluminum frame Glock would be so cool. But anyway, other than Glock being getting the crap suit out of them, I can't see like what the big deal about Glock doing what they're doing. Like I'm a business, and I couldn't even think about being sued by all these government agencies and how much money and time and legal jargon and stuff that I just don't want to deal with. Uh, how much time and money that would take, right? And they're in the business to make money. And I hear people say, well, they shouldn't sell to the police agencies and the states that are suing them. And I somewhat agree. I wish they wouldn't, but you have to understand if they don't sell those pistols to the like agencies, someone else is going to. Like Smith and Wesson's going to jump on the ball, or H&K is going to jump on it, or whoever, right? Sig maybe. So someone's going to take the place of Glock, and then it still doesn't matter because the this police agencies they're going to get a pistol anyway, and maybe they like Glocks, but it's not going to be the end of the world if they have to change platforms and stuff. So but I don't know. It's just something to think about, guys. And like I said, I wanted to weigh in my 2 cents and just kind of bring some a different perspective to this because as someone who's very knowledgeable in how the Glock system works, um, I'm kind of curious what they do. I really hope they keep it relatively easy to work on. Obviously, there's going to be some learning curves. Things are going to be different. It's going to take time for parts manufacturers to make aftermarket parts and stuff. So the aftermarket is going to be a slow burn for sure. Whereas like, and another thing I'm worried about is the aftermarket for like Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5. Like right now it's solid, but as these, I don't know, are these pistols getting banned? Like, are we not allowed to like carry the Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5s? You know, maybe in the liberal areas that are suing them. I don't know. So if other if they start suing other parts manufacturers, other gun manufacturers for the same reasons, and they start knocking guns off and banning them and stuff, we're going to be in a world of trouble. But I don't really see that happening. Um, I see manufacturers making changes like Glock did in order to appease them. They're just going to find loopholes and workarounds to keep on producing guns for us. So um, I honestly think it'd be very, very difficult for anyone to ban guns in the United States. It's just too deep. We're in it too deep. There's too many out there. There's too many people that would never let that happen. That I don't think it could ever happen. So I think they'll try. Right? They might do it state by state and city by city, but on a federal level, it'll never happen. So I'm not afraid of that. Now martial law happens, and we can't buy anything. Ammo is depleted. Basically, it's the rule of law of whatever local government there is. That's a different story, right? But at that point, it's a free for all, and you need to have something to defend and protect yourself with anyway. So, but anyway, guys, that's what I think about this whole debacle and why I don't think it's such a big deal. Let's just give it some time and see what Glock does with their redesign, and it is what it is, guys. Well, we're gonna have to deal with it, and I still think they're gonna make a solid pistol. Um, I just hope it's good. You know what I mean? I hope it's got some good features. If they're going to make changes, I hope they make better, advancements to the things that I want and stuff. But man, I'll tell you what. Every time I look at my Glocks, they're so good looking, man. I love. I know they're kind of ugly and boxy, but once you add like magwells and base plates and triggers and optics and stuff, they are just such a sexy, sexy looking pistol in my opinion. So especially if you can really, really do it up, you stipple the frame and stuff. That's oh man. Uh, I'm just going to gush over Glock a little bit just because I really like it. Right, like it's so easy to modify. Like there's a standard Glock. That's kind of what you can do to it, and that's just kind of the transition for OEM basically. Right, if you want to buy aftermarket slides and stuff, there's a lot you can do to it too. You could Cerakote it and do stuff like this, buy an aftermarket slide, Cerakote it, and basically change out all the OEM parts. This is more of a range toy and a fun gun, but if I'm doing anything serious, I'm going to stick with OEM, right? So OEM frame, OEM slide. I'll optic cut them and stuff, but I don't change the internals. I will change the trigger and stuff, and I might change the connector, but that's about it, right? Um, but man, such a simple platform, guys, and like I said, like you can have your favorite or you can have like your pistol platform, but I'm gonna absolutely tell you, if you shoot MMPs and you're good with MMPs, stick with MMPs, man, and get good with it. Learn how to really disassemble them. But I cannot disassemble anybody with their preferred pistol platform, and I can do it with less tools too. Like I said, take apart a VP9 with nothing but a 330 seconds punch pin. I dare you, and let's see how long it takes you. I can literally take a Glock in its complete form. If I'm rushing, right, and I'm not like having to look through a camera screen and do all that to it, I can take a complete Glock, can take it apart to all its 34 basic components, put it back together and function test it in a time of 3 minutes. It takes me 3 minutes to do that whole process. Complete, apart, all parts and just separate, separate piles, completely disassembled, assemble it again, and function check it in a 3 minute time period with nothing but a punch pin. You tell me what other pistol you can do that with, and I'll wait because there is none. I'm going to tell you there is none, and that's what I like about Glock so much. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you next time.